Hello, welcome to Zigmatech Learning Hub. I'll be your instructor for biology. For this class, we are going to be taking our exercises from the ExamGuide app. Now, if you don't already have this installed in your device, I would like you to download the app in order to follow along in this class. Now, ExamGuide is a leading educational app that helps students prepare adequately for various exams. Exams such as the UTME, the post-UTME, WAEC, GCE, IJMB, KCPE, JUPEB, KCPE. In the junior sections, we also have the BECE, we have the SSCE, and so much more. Now, you can download the app from www.examguide.com or you visit the Google Play Store to download. Now, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to update yourselves on new videos that will be coming up. Now, if you're ready for this class, let's get started. Today, we're going to be looking at another topic, still on tissues and supporting systems. We can call this tissues and supporting system 3, or we can even say tissues and supporting system in plants. All this while, we have been discussing tissues and supporting systems in animals. It is important for you to also note that plants have their own supporting systems, or they have tissues that helps them, that gives support, rigidity, and protection to other vital parts of the plant. And we're going to be looking at most of these tissues and their importance or their functions. But before we go into this particular topic, there are several specific objectives you are expected to get to know at the end of this class. Now, let's take a look at them. Number one, you should be able to mention these supporting tissues that are found in plants. Number two, you should be able to describe most of them. Like we have the Parenchyma, we have the Collenchyma, we have the Sclerenchyma, we have the Xylem, we have the Phloem tissues. You should be able to mention these, describe these supporting tissues and also give their functions. And number four, you should be able to, number five rather, you should be able to outline the mechanisms of support in plants. Mechanisms like the epidermis, we have the pith, we have the vascular bundles, and so on. You should be able to outline them and give a little explanations on it. And then number six, you should be able to outline the arrangement of supporting tissues in plants. And then finally, we should be able to mention some of the functions of supporting tissues in plants. Now, if you are set, let's start up with these. Let's start off by looking at an introduction. Remember, I just said before we started the specific objective, I told you that just as animals have the skeleton to provide support, rigidity, protection, and give shape to the body of the organism of an animal, plants also have tissues that provides shape, that provides rigidity, support, and as well as protection against wind and water to the plant. And these are the things we're going to be looking at in this particular class. We're going to be looking at the types of supporting tissues that are found in plants. Types of supporting tissues found in plants. And for today's class, we're going to be talking about 5 types of supporting tissues. 5 of them. The first one we're going to be looking at is parenchyma, the parenchyma cell or tissue. Number 2 is the collenchyma tissue. Number 3 is the sclerenchyma tissue. Number 4, we have the xylem tissue. And then number 5, we have the phloem tissue. These are 5 tissues we're going to be considering in this class today. The first one is the parenchyma tissue. Parenchyma tissue. Now, the parenchyma tissue is actually located in the cortex of the stem. You can also find it in the phloem. You can find it in the roots. You can find it in leaves, in storage tissues, in xylem and the mesophyll. You can find the parenchyma tissue almost everywhere or every part of the plant. Number two thing you should take note of is this, that they are living cells. Parenchyma tissues are living cells with cellular and many air spaces. They have many air spaces. They are living cells. And of course, they are the most abundant tissues in plants. Remember where we said we can locate them. We can locate them in the stem. You can locate them in the roots. You can locate them in the leaves. You can locate them in storage tissues. You can locate them even in other supporting tissues like the phloem, like the xylem. You can locate them. So they are actually the most abundant tissue in plants. Now, what do they look like? Now, look at a longitudinal view of a parenchyma cell or tissue, and that is a cross-sectional view of the parenchyma tissues. You can see that they have many air spaces. Many air spaces. And then we have the next thing to look at in parenchyma is majorly, very important, their functions. Functions of parenchyma tissues. Functions. Now we're going to look at 4 important functions of the parenchyma tissue. Number 1, it gives firmness. Parenchyma tissue gives firmness and turgidity to the stems. Now, in fact, they work best with turgor pressure or turgidity. Okay, they give firmness and turgidity to the stem. Number 2 is that they store food and water. Remember, we said they can be located in the phloem, and they can also be located in the xylem. In the phloem, one of the major functions of the phloem is to conduct or transport food, manufactured food, and then one of the major functions of the xylem is to conduct or transport water. So they help the parenchyma tissues, since they are found in the phloem and in the xylem, they help to store food and water in plants. Number 3 is that they aid in the synthesis of food in the leaves. Remember also, we said they can be found in the leaves. So they help in photosynthesis. They help in the synthesis of food in the leaves. And then finally, they give support based on this turgidity that they provide. They give support to stems and leaves of young herbaceous plants. Okay, so these are the major functions of the parenchyma tissues. Now, moving to sclerenchyma. Sclerenchyma tissues. Now, the sclerenchyma tissues is located in the pericycle. It is mostly found in the pericycle in the vascular tissues and cortexes of roots and stems. It is located in the pericycle, in the vascular tissues and cortexes of roots and stems. Now, there are 2 types of sclerenchyma tissues. We have what we call the fiber. Now, the fiber, actually, one of the major functions of the fiber is that they provide flexibility. And flexibility and resilience simply talks about the ability of a particular plant to bend without breaking. That's flexibility. Ability to bend without breaking. So once there is high number or a greater amount of sclerenchyma tissues in a particular plant, it means that that plant has the tendency or ability to bend without breaking. So there is flexibility and resilience in parenchyma tissue. So one of the types of sclerenchyma tissues, one of the types of sclerenchyma tissues is the fiber. And like I said, the fiber produces flexibility and also it produces strength. Another thing again to take note about the sclerenchyma tissue is that it produces great strength to plants. And that's the next type of sclerenchyma tissue, which is called the sclerids. It is called the sclerids. So we have 2 types of sclerenchyma tissue, fiber and sclerids. Fiber and sclerids. Now let's take a look at the structure of a sclerenchyma tissue. We have the longitudinal section, that's how it looks like, and then we have the cross-sectional view. Now functions of sclerenchyma tissues. Now, one of the functions of the sclerenchyma tissues, like we said before, is flexibility. it provides flexibility. Another thing again is that it provides strength, rigidity, hardness, and support to plants. It provides strength, rigidity, hardness, and support to plants. So we have two important functions for strength and for flexibility. Please take note of this: strength and flexibility. Number three type of supporting tissues in plants is the Collenchyma tissue. Now, the Collenchyma tissue is also located at the cortex of the stem and the roots, okay? And it is usually found beneath the epidermis. Now, another thing again to take note of is that the Sclerenchyma tissues, they consist of living, elongated, and flexible cells. So flexibility is also one of the functions of the Collenchyma tissues. Now, let's take a look at the structure of the Collenchyma tissue. You can see there is a protoplasm, it possesses a cell wall, and you can see the thickened corners. So let's look at the functions of the Collenchyma tissue. One, it provides strength and support in young growing plants. It provides strength, it provides support in young growing plants, okay? And the parts of the plants where you see this support and strength is mostly in the stems and in the leaf blade. Number two, it gives what? Flexibility. If you can remember, when we looked at it, we said it is flexible. It contains fibers that are flexible fibers. So it gives flexibility to the plant. And we said that flexibility is simply the ability of a plant to bend without breaking. And then we have the phloem tissue. The phloem tissue. The phloem tissue is actually located within the vascular tissues or the vascular bundle. It makes up the vascular bundles. You can find it at the roots, you can find it at the stem, you can also find it in the leaves. I repeat, it can be located in the vascular tissues, and the place where you can see these vascular tissues are the stems, leaves, as well as what? Roots. Okay? Now, the phloem tissue consists of several parts. We have what we call the sieve tubes. We have what we call the Phloem parenchyma. Remember, we talked about this. We said the parenchyma can be found both in the phloem and in the xylem. So we have the Phloem parenchyma. We also have the companion cells, and then we have the phloem fiber. Since it contains fiber, it means it carries out the function of also flexibility. Is that okay? So these are the parts that make up the phloem tissue. We have the sieve tube, we have the phloem parenchyma, we have the companion cells, and then we have the phloem fiber. Take a look at what it looks like. Now, this is the transport tissue in vascular plants. As you can see, we have the vascular bundle, as we have here, and the vascular bundles are made up of the xylem and the phloem. You see the blue, light blue color, or the sky blue color there, that's the xylem, and then the orange color, it represents the phloem. Now, functions of the phloem. Number one function of the phloem is that they provide strength to the plants. They also provide support to the entire plant. And number three function of the phloem you should take note of is this, that the phloem also helps to transport and conduct manufactured food. They transport and conduct manufactured food from the leaves to the roots, the stems, and other parts of the plant. I repeat, functions of the phloem. Number one, they provide support. Number two, they provide strength to the plant. Number three, they conduct manufactured food from the leaves to the roots, to the stems, and other parts of the plants. So these are three important functions of the phloem tissue. Next on the line is the xylem tissue. Xylem tissue. Now, the xylem tissue is actually located in the vascular tissues, just like the phloem tissue. You can also see the xylem tissue in the roots. You can see it in the stems and as well as the leaves, all right? Now, another name for the xylem tissue is wood. So in some cases, you will see them referred to as the wood tissue, all right? Now, the xylem tissue is made up of or consists of the tracheids. We have the vessels, we have the fiber, and when we have the xylem parenchyma. The tracheids, the vessels, fiber, xylem parenchyma. These are the parts that makes up the xylem tissue. And then take a look at the roots. When we do a transverse section of the roots, this is what we see. And you can see the xylem tissue, the sky blue, and then you can see the phloem tissue painted green. So that's the xylem tissue, and also that is the phloem tissue. Now, functions of the xylem tissue. Now, please take note. The xylem tissue, one of the major functions is to provide support, strength, and they give shape to the plant. They provide support, strength, and they give shape to the plant. Another important functions of the xylem tissue is that they conduct water and dissolved minerals from the roots to the leaves. Remember, minerals are required by plants for manufacturing their food. It is one of the conditions that are necessary for photosynthesis to occur. One of the conditions necessary for photosynthesis to occur is the presence of minerals. And these minerals can be conducted from the roots, from the soil, through the root hairs, through the xylem, and conducted to the leaves where food is being manufactured. So these are two important functions of the xylem tissue. One is to provide support, strength, and shape to the plants. Number two is to conduct water and dissolved mineral salts from the roots to the leaves and to the stems and every other part of the plant where it is needed. Mechanisms of support in plants. Mechanisms of support in plants. Now, there are several mechanisms that are required for support in plants, apart from the tissues we have looked at. One of them is the epidermis, or you can call it the pelliferous layer. Now, the epidermis and the pelliferous layers, the epidermis is actually located at the leaves. I think the pelliferous is located at the stem also. Now, they are the outer coverings of the leaves and stem and roots. Epidermis is found in the leaves and in the stem, while the pelliferous is found in the roots of plants. Leaves and stem is for the epidermis, and then the pelliferous is for the roots. Now, what is the major function of the epidermis? Now, the pelliferous layer. The major function is to protect the cells, the inner cells, from injury. To protect the inner cells from injury, from infection and water loss. So it is mainly for protection from injuries, from infections, and then also from what? Water loss. Number two is the cortex. The cortex. In the course of our diagram, you might have seen labels of the cortex. Now, the cortex is usually found between the epidermis and the vascular bundles in dicotyledonous plants. Between the epidermis and vascular bundles. Also, the cortex is made up of Collenchyma, it is made up of Parenchyma, and it is also made up of what we call the inner endodermis. That is the inner part of the dermis. Then we also say one of the major functions of the cortex is that it provides strength. The cortex provides support to plants, and it also helps in the storage of starch. I repeat, one of the major functions or the major functions of the cortex to plants as it regards to supporting tissues or supporting the plant is that it provides strength, it provides support, and also it helps in the storage of what? Starch. The parenchyma ensures in the times, the parenchyma actually ensures the storage of starch. The Collenchyma provides the strength and what? Support. All right. Number 3 is Sclerenchyma. Sclerenchyma, like we said, is a fiber. Okay, we said it's a fiber, and one of its major functions is strength and flexibility. So they help to strengthen the stem and also make the plant to be what? Flexible. Number 4 is the vascular bundles. Vascular bundles. Now the vascular bundles are located in the inner part of the stem. You can also get the vascular bundles in the stem. You can also see them in the roots as well as also in the leaves. Now the vascular bundles or tissues consist of the xylem tissue, it consists of the phloem tissue, and then it consists of the cambium. Please take note. Xylem, phloem, cambium. Now, I won't start telling us more about the xylem again. We've just finished talking about the xylem, and we said that one of the major functions of the xylem tissue is to conduct water and dissolved mineral salts from the roots to the leaves rather. And then we talked about the phloem, which is a tissue that conducts, a conducting tissue that helps to conduct or transport manufactured food from the leaves to the roots to the stem and other parts of the plants that need them. So these are the major functions of the xylem and the phloem as part of the vascular bundle. Now the third part of the vascular bundle is the cambium. We didn't talk about the cambium. Now the cambium, one of the major functions of the cambium is that it brings about secondary thickening in plants. Secondary thickening in plants. And this secondary thickening in plant increases the size of many tree trunks. It increases the size of the tree trunks. Increases the size of the tree trunks. So the major functions of the cambium is for secondary thickening. Please take note of this. I've seen several questions, WAEC, JAMB, where they ask these questions: which of the following tissues are responsible for secondary thickening in plants? Please take note, it is cambium. All right. Number 5, we have the pith. Now the pith is the central part of the stem. You find the pith in the stem. You can also find pith also in roots. Mostly in monocotyledonous roots, you can find the pith. But in dicotyledonous plants, you can find the pith in the stem. Okay, in the stem. Now, the pith is large and made up of what? Parenchyma tissues. All right. Now, take a look at the diagrams here. Now, that is a dicotyledonous root. Now, if you look at the dicotyledonous roots, you have the xylem. See the arrangement in the roots. You have the xylem, you have the phloem, you have the cortex, you can see the piliferous layer, you have the root hairs. All right. Now take a look at that of the stem. See how it is also well arranged. You also have the cortex, you have the pith. Are you seeing the pith? That is in the dicotyledonous stem. You have the pith, but you don't have pith in dicotyledonous roots. Please take note. In the roots, you don't have a pith. Now, take a look at monocotyledonous stem. You'll see that the content is scattered. They are not arranged as that of dicotyledonous plants. But we have the vascular bundles. We have other parts. Then take a look at the monocotyledonous roots. It is arranged. We have the pith. So in the pith is found mostly in the monocotyledonous root and dicotyledonous stem. Please take note. Okay. Now, what are the functions of supporting tissues in plants? What are the functions of supporting tissues in plants? And I think this is where we're going to call it a wrap up on this. Functions of supporting tissues in plants. Number 1, they provide necessary strength required by plants. They provide the necessary strength required by plants. Number 2 is that they provide rigidity against any external force. Remember, we talked about rigidity and flexibility in terms of the Collenchyma. We said they have the ability to withstand forces or external forces like wind and water. Number three function of supporting tissues in plants is that they provide plants with resilience and flexibility. And I've told you what resilience and flexibility means. It means the ability to bend. Flexibility means to bend. Resilience simply means it will not break. So the ability to bend without breaking is also another function of supporting tissues in plants. And you can see that in both Collenchyma and Sclerenchyma. And number four, we have that they provide protection to delicate parts of the plant, and that you can see like the phloem and the cambium. And then finally, they aid in the conduction of dissolved minerals, and water from the roots to other parts of the plant, and so on. And that is the major functions of the xylem and the phloem. The xylem helps to conduct dissolved minerals and water from the roots to the leaves, and also the phloem helps to conduct manufactured food from the leaves to the roots and other parts of the plant. And this brings us to the end of this particular discussion. But before we go, let's take a look at some few questions here, and then also with the exam guide app. Question 1. Which of the following tissues gives support to the stem and leaves of a young herbaceous plant? Now, the correct option that gives support mostly to young herbaceous plant, if you go back, the correct option is B, turgid parenchyma. We said that was one of the functions of the parenchyma tissue. They provide support to the stem and the leaves of young herbaceous plant. So let's look at question 2. Which of the following tissue is the most abundant tissue in plants? Most abundant tissue, the correct option there is C, which is parenchyma. Remember, we said that parenchyma can be located in the roots, in the stem, in the leaves, in phloem, in xylem, and so many other parts of the plant where we can locate or see the parenchyma cell tissue. So parenchyma tissue for now is the most abundant tissue in plants. Question 3, we have which of the following brings about secondary thickening in plants? And secondary thickening in plants, remember I told you, is located in the vascular bundles. Now we have in the vascular bundles, we have the xylem, we have the phloem, and then we have the cambium. Now the phloem has nothing to do with secondary thickening. Xylem has nothing to do with secondary thickening. Cortex has nothing to do with it, but the correct option is the cambium. Based on the secondary thickening it gives to plants, it increases the size of many tree trunks, okay? And then finally, question 4 for now, the plant tissue responsible for transportation of dissolved minerals and water from the roots to the leaves is what? It is not the phloem, it is not the cambium, it is not even the Collenchyma. The correct option to this answer, to this question, is the xylem tissue. So the xylem tissue is responsible for conduction of water and dissolved mineral salts from the roots to the leaves of plants. Now let's take a look at 1 or 2 questions from our exam guide app. Okay, take a look at few questions here. We have about 10 questions, but I'm not picking all of it. Just going to take a few of them. Now take a look at the question 1. They said, what keeps the stem of young herbaceous plants upright? What keeps the stem of young herbaceous plants upright? Now it has to do with turgor pressure. Is that clear? It is the turgor pressure. Now take a look at question 2. I want questions that are related to what we have already started discussing. Look at this question. Now they said the supporting tissue of xylem is most poorly developed where? Most poorly developed, is it a mangrove swamp plant, submerged water plant, desert plants, grassland plants? The correct answer is submerged water plants, because you have a lot of water. So the conduction of water loss of water will be mostly in terms of this particular plant. So the supporting tissue that is most poorly developed here is mostly submerged, is plants that are found in submerged waters. Then look at another question we have here. Look at this. In the internal structure of plants, we talked about this, a wide pith in the center is common to what? Is it dicot stem and monocot roots? B, is it dicot roots and monocot stem? C, is it dicot roots, monocot roots? D, is it dicot stem, monocot root? I told you the correct answer is dicot stem and monocot roots. Dicot stem, if you go back to the diagrams, you'll see it, dicot stem, that's where you have a central pith or center. Then we also have it in the monocot root. Let's look at one more question. They said, which of the following is involved in secondary thickening in plants? And the correct answer is the vascular cambium and cork cambium. It can be vascular cambium, which is option C, vascular cambium and Collenchyma cell. No, Collenchyma cells has nothing to do with secondary thickening. Neither can it be cork cambium and Sclerenchyma tissue or cells, which is option D. Sclerenchyma has nothing to do with secondary thickening. Neither is the correct answer option A, which is Collenchyma and Xylem cells. No, the correct option here is the cambium, which is B, vascular cambium and cork cambium. They are responsible for secondary thickening in plants. Thank you for participating in today's class. You can practice more questions using your ExamGuide app. The app scores and gives a detailed explanation of all the questions at the end of your practice test. You can also learn particular topics of interest with different modes like study mode, mock mode, and even practice mode. It also has other features that makes learning very fun. Now, it is a must for all serious students. Download from www.examguide.com if you don't have it yet. See you in the next class. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels, hit the notification bell, and share the videos to your loved ones and friends that will benefit from it. Bye for now.